Moving on to the middleweights, the top three prospects in the UFC middleweight division, I think, are Krzysztof Jotko. He's 19-1, and at 27, he even has the possibility to be a future title contender. I feel he's a very well-rounded fighter. There's a lot of congestion at the moment at the top of the division, so he could struggle to break into that top five. But look for the Pole to continue his impressive form inside the UFC and force his way into contention either later this year or the beginning of next year. Number 2 on my list is Elias Theodorou, the Spartan. Currently 12-1. He just won at Fight Night Halifax. He's still only 28 years old. He has all the right attributes to be a title contender. I think he's got areas he definitely needs to improve on and build on, but I think that's quite normal. At his stage of the evolution of the game, he should be looking to get better. He's definitely not a finished article, especially if he wants to be a title contender. He's got very good visibility among certain areas of the fan base, but the potential for him to really break out and become a top star is there. Again, the top of the division makes it difficult for him, but in some ways that helps him out because he's still got a certain amount of evolving and growing to do. Number 3 on the list, Antonio Carlos Jr., 7-2 with 1 no contest. The 2 losses coming to Patrick Cummings at 205 and Dan Kelly, the Olympian. So while it's never great to lose, the guys that he lost to are much heavier and also very good, and then Dan Kelly, an Olympian who is excellent. So Antonio Carlos Jr. is no slouch, and I think he's going to be making moves towards the top 10 by the end of this year. We can give honorable mentions as well to Marvin Viatori and Paulo Enrico Costa. So I think the UFC middleweight division is one of the most competitive right now with elite fighters, and I think that they've got a long list of young guys already inside the organization looking to move up. To the guys competing outside the UFC, there was only one guy who I could name as number 1 in my opinion for the top prospects. Ed Ruth, 2-0 in MMA. He's fighting over at Bellator, but he's a 3-time NCAA wrestling champion. He has the wisdom to join one of the best camps in the world, Jackson Wink. I think this kid is going to be a future title contender. Maybe even he's going to grab hold of that 185 title and hold it for a long time. Number 2 on my list, Razom Emev, 29 years old, 15-3, tough, well-rounded fighter who could move into the UFC tomorrow, in my opinion, and compete in one of the hottest divisions in the sport. Israeli Adesanya, the style bender. This guy's 6-0 in MMA, but he's a very well-known kickboxing Muay Thai specialist. Superb stand-up. He's got one of the funniest Instagrams out there, in my opinion, followed by Joe Rogan on Twitter. I wouldn't be surprised to see this New Zealand-based fighter in the UFC in short order, and he's certainly got the talent to mix it up with the top guys in the division. Number 4, Vladimir Minev, 8-1, 27-year-old Russian. Also with a good striking background, 24-2 in kickboxing. I'm not sure why, but he has the nickname Big Dillashaw, which is, I think that's quite funny. He certainly has the striking chops to mix it up with the best in the UFC, but he really needs to work on the ground game. That's a very visible chink in the armor, in my opinion. Number 5 on the list, Jordan Young, 22 years old, 6-0, and at 6'4", huge guy for the division. somewhat of a submission specialist. And I think if the coaching staff that he surrounds him with can teach him to strike at range, to control the distance well, then he's going to be a difficult opponent for anybody at 185. Number 6, Muslim Kishriv. Ah, fuck that. 8-1, 5-fight win streak. Another ground specialist, but he has fought tough opponents and could step into the UFC on short notice at this stage. Again, I would like to see an improvement in the standing game before we decide the upper limit of where he could go, but very talented fighter. Number 7, Trevin Giles, 9-0 and only 24 years old. More proficient on the ground than standing, but he has enough about him to suggest that he'll land in the UFC at some point in the next few years. Number 8, another NCAA competitor, this time Chris Honeycutt. He was 2-time NCAA All-American, currently 9-1 with 1 no contest. I'm not sure he's got the ability to go much beyond the top 10. I don't know whether he'd ever break into that top 5 title picture scene. But, he's still got time to improve. And, being a top 10 middleweight, top 15 middleweight in the world is no joke. Number 9, Faisal Hussein, 11-3, very well-rounded 29-year-old from France, where MMA is still illegal, I believe. He has a notable win on the feet against accomplished ex-UFC striker Che Mills. Maybe we'll see him on a European card, I imagine. And the last guy on the list, Artem Forlov. He's 8-0, 25-year-old Russian with a variety of wins by decision, TKO, and submission. He's dangerous all over and can go into the deep waters. I still think he would benefit from a couple of years evolution outside the UFC. But 2018, I think we could see him competing with the best in the world at 185.